so I thought I would change it up, and instead of writing a paper, I've decided to do a kind of video summary of the articles I read and then the big takeaways I have from reading those articles. So my topic was kind of defining digital literacy, which is really broad. Digital literacy can mean a lot of things, but I did take away some important things that I think I will carry forward into the future, not just about digital literacy, but also literacy, which is what this class was all about. So my first article was entitled Measuring Digital Literacies, Junior High School Students' Perceived Competencies versus Actual Performance. And I will also, of course, share a link to all of these sources so you can see them and investigate them if you want to. This article was really interesting. So it explored whether or not students' opinions of themselves and their capabilities on the internet and their digital literacy skills actually matched up with what their real skills were. And not surprising to myself, since I've been in a junior high for a little bit, but they do not match up. And this article, peer-reviewed article, looked at 280 junior high school students with the aim of comparing participants' perceived digital literacy competencies and their actual performance. And it turned out their actual performance was way off, and they were rating themselves way higher than they were actually capable of doing. That was really interesting. This is not surprising to me. Like I said, I've been in the classroom and I've noticed that even on basic tasks that I would think most students would be comfortable doing, such as looking at YouTube videos to teach themselves something, or going online and pulling out important pieces of information, even verifying sources, they seem to do a really bad job of that. I don't know if it's just that they're lazy, or there's some other factor going on, if they'd never been taught, or they just are choosing to ignore it. I'm not really sure, but clearly this is something that's happening. Article number 2, this was actually just a pure definition thing that I looked at. I looked at the American Library Association website and how they define. They actually have a digital literacy task force, and they defined digital literacy as the ability to use information and communication technologies to find, evaluate, create, and communicate information requiring both cognitive and technical skills. That's a mouthful. I'll probably put that right below the source just so you can see it. But the thing that's surprising to me on a lot of these definitions is how far they take the definition away from what would be like reading and writing, the conventional metrics of how you'd measure literacy. Clearly technology is something that's integrated in, but they use the word evaluate, create, and communicate information requiring both cognitive and technical skills. So there's kind of this implied notion that you not only have to be able to understand the information, but you have to be able to access it, and you have to have enough background about how to use a computer to be able to do that, which is interesting. My third article was entitled Forging Agreement on Definition. It was from Education Week. And this article was another one that just kind of looked at different definitions of the term and how people are interpreting it. Here, what I thought was interesting was, I guess there's a couple professors that are well respected in the area of digital literacy, and one of them is quoted in this article. I think they are a professor of education at North Carolina, and they say digital literacy can really be defined by 3 simple concepts. 1, finding and consuming digital content. 2, creating digital content. And 3, communicating or sharing it. I thought this is a really simple definition that I would probably teach if I was going to talk about this more formally, because a lot of these other definitions kind of go over your head. There's too much to them, but this one's really simple. 3 things: finding, consuming digital content, creating digital content, and communicating and sharing it. And I agree with that pretty much encompasses everything you'd want to know about digital literacy. Another article I did, this is number 4. This one was kind of interesting because it had a huge survey attached to it. That's where the results came from. It was called Redefining Literacy, the Realities of Digital Literacy for Students with Disabilities in K through 12. It's in the Journal of Education and Practice. This one had to do with students with disabilities, but the actual survey polled not only teachers or special education teachers, but also general education teachers. So it really applies across the board, the results that came from it. And this one was an interesting article. This one described as digital literacy as complex thinking competencies involving cognitive, motor, emotional, and social skills that enable users to operate intuitively and effectively in digital environments for work, learning, and daily function. And this is a really interesting definition to me because they imply this kind of intuitive process that digital literacy has to be. If you're really thinking about it, you're not quite at that point where you'd be digitally literate. And I think that's kind of true. I mean, you always have to have certain things, be aware of certain things, and be acting on them diligently. But most of the stuff that we're doing online, interpreting information, for example, that has to happen intuitively. And I really like that definition of how they explain that. When they polled teachers, they polled 680 teachers, I believe, and it turned out that most of them, the three conclusions they came away with, all of the studies that have been reviewed in this study have shown a positive relationship between the implementation of digital content and the associated outcomes for students with disabilities. Based on the results, there were three major themes: digital literacy as a form of engagement and motivation, as a form of representation, and as a medium for enhancing students' skills and achievements. So basically, it just takes education to the next level. It adds another element, another layer that makes it more complex and interesting to students and allows them to express a little bit more, especially with students with disabilities. They might not be able to express themselves with conventional means, so having an option on the computer or some software that helps them, that seems to really be effective. And finally, my last article was Rethinking Instructional Technology to Improve Pedagogy for Digital Literacy, a design case in Graduate Early Childhood Education course. And this one was just, had another couple definitions in it. Their definition was pretty simple and I liked it. It can be loosely defined as having competence in technology applications so they can contribute to society both creatively and productively. Simple, to the point, also super broad. Basically, if you're doing something creative and productive using technology and it contributes to society, they would put that in the category of digital literacy. And they also compared digital literacy to book handling skills that you would teach in a conventional literacy class. So how to read the table of contents, do all that stuff related to a book. That's what digital literacy really is. It's the book handling of the technology world slash all the other stuff that digital literacy combines. So I thought that was kind of interesting, comparing it to book handling skills. I don't know if that quite covers everything, but I like the idea. It's simple, but of course exploring the internet using a computer is way more complex than just looking in the book and being able to find what you want. My big takeaways from this are that a lot of people have different interpretations of what digital literacy is. That probably contributes to a little bit of the confusion that's out there and kind of what we expect students to be capable of doing as they're going forward in school. Clearly, just from that junior high study, there's some sort of disconnect going on, or the skills are not being taught. I don't know if it's because it's still a relatively new thing, although this kind of stuff was around when I was a kid, which was 20 years ago or more. So I'm wondering why it's taking such a long time to catch up. Maybe a lot of teachers just assume that kids know how to do this stuff, or no one wants to take the class time to actually teach it. But there is a disconnect going on right now, and that is concerning. And obviously I think that makes this class and teaching these kind of skills that more important in your course, even if it's not directly related to literacy. So that was interesting. Other takeaways, I really liked the definition that talked about the intuitive process of interacting with the computer and getting content. I think that is a great way to think about it. There has to be enough repetitions of doing the right thing, developing that base skill set, that when they go online, at very worst, they're not going to get themselves into trouble because they have the set of skills that they're interacting or using intuitively. And at best, right, they not only use those skills, but then start building on top of them so they become really proficient in exploring the internet and creating digital content. So I would say those are my main takeaways. And this is clearly something that I could explore more And I think some other questions I would have would be at the high school level. That one study explored the junior high level. At the high school level, are those problems still there? And even at the college level, I wonder, is there a disconnect between self-confidence and actual performance on a lot of these tasks? That would be really interesting to find out. So anyway, thank you. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm going to edit it now, and I'll get it up on YouTube. So I look forward to hearing back from you what you think. See you later.